when you build anything, you got to start somewhere. So in Dynasty Fantasy Football, whether that's in the startup draft or you're rebuilding, there's always a lot of steps to take. So let's start here with the intro video. Welcome, everyone, to episode 31 of the Dynasty Six Pack. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Senra. Joining me are my co-hosts. First, we have Rahul Natarajan. How are you doing, Rahul?
Doing well, Kyle. Good to see you. Good to see Jamie as well. I feel like today was one of those days that made me feel like, yeah, we're playing fantasy football now. Just the sheer avalanche of news and maybe the severity of some of the news that came out today, the debates we were having over running backs that no one probably drafted, in 18, 20 round best ball leagues, all becoming relevant in week 5, man. We're playing the game now, but excited to break it down on today's episode of the Dynasty Six Pack.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to plug the name of the show, too. Great intro, Rahul. But only one could be better, and that is our co-host. That's kidding. He might not be better. Not that, Rahul. You're both equal, in my opinion. You're both fantastic. I love being on this podcast with both of you. That includes our co-host, Jamie Perog. How are you, Jamie?
How's everyone doing? Welcome to the Fantasy Six Pack Dynasty Show. We have takes to keep your roster sharp and your future stacked. Let's talk some football.
Helium Jamie, everyone. Thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome.
Is that part of the new mic package?
Yes, it is. Glad to be here. I kept doing it yesterday, and Mike kept muting me. So
You're taking it better than Mike did yesterday for sure, Kyle.
You know what? And maybe it's best that I hadn't actually watched yesterday's show of Cheat Sheet yet. I was going to wait till tomorrow because I had no idea. So I totally baffled and surprised. That is hilarious. Don't ever do it again. But yes.
the whole show like that.
Yeah, that'll go over well. Yeah. I mean, hey, if you know what, if the viewers want it, let us know. If you want Helium Voice Jamie, leave us in the comments. You can head over to the Fantasy Six Pack YouTube channel, of course. We're live every Wednesday here at 9 p.m. Eastern. Check out fantasy6pack.net, of course. Tons of great content, especially, as Rahul said, dead smack in the middle of fantasy football season. So lots of great stuff happening. Tons of great articles. My goal line guide series is finally dropping for 2025, starting in week 5 here. So it'll be tomorrow morning if you're watching this live, of course. I believe it's Thursday around 6 a.m. is when that article is scheduled to be released. It's all done. Just a lot of stuff came out today, so we split out the content a little bit. There are always so much great content again at fantasy6pack.net, and all what you see on the website is free, but there is behind the scenes the all access membership, which gets you even more. There's a discount right now, 15% off the all-access membership if you use the promo code F6PPODS, F6PPODS. So appreciate people for checking that out. Whether, again, you get the free content at fantasy6pack.net, the Fantasy Six Pack Discord, or if you get the all-access membership and get you premium channels and tons of great contests, betting, DFS stuff, especially mid-season here. Also fantrax.com/fantasy6pack. It's a partnership that we have with Fantrax. And you know what? Someone's in the comments already. We've got a question right here. So Poke Varsity, sorry. That should have been a lot easier to say. So we've got Bonix, Derrick Henry, J.K. Dobbins, Puka Nacua, Jalen Waddle, Cortland Sutton, Sam Laporta. I tried to say those two names together too much. That's the starting roster, and benches Jordan Addison, Bucky Irving, Jacoby Myers, Ladd McConkey, Tre Tucker, Darren Waller, Troy Franklin. What are moves they can do? They're asking what kind of moves they could do with Bucky gone. 10-team, full PPR, and team is currently 2-2.
I mean, it seems to be, I'm assuming this is Dynasty, right? Or redraft, drop it in the chat.
I would think redraft. But this is
redraft.
Dynasty Six Pack, so feel free to let us know. But yeah.
I think this roster's all right. I mean, it's a single quarterback league. You got a decent quarterback. You got the stack with Sutton. Waddle is obviously going to take a step forward now. Puka, one of the best in the game. I think
Mhm.
you can get by with Dobbins and Henry if Henry steps it up, like we all know he can.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I agree with Jamie. It's a good roster. I am struggling to see a bit of like who you'd want to move. I mean, maybe Addison had, I believe, 100 yards in the last week. Maybe like I'm not maybe as high as Addison as maybe the 1 week perception might.
Always really like Gordon.
Yeah.
Is yelling at me in the rankings. You're too high in consensus. Well, no, everyone's too low. Or not.
Maybe you could move like a Myers and Tucker.
I don't know if you can move both Raiders together, right? Like, unless the team has Geno Smith, who wants both Raiders, right? Like, I almost don't. To me, the moves to make is almost you want to just secure your running back depth. You don't necessarily have to do that with a trade. Like, who's available as a free agent? I mean, we're going to talk about waiver wire strategy tonight, which if your waivers run Thursday morning, and that could apply for this week. But even if they don't, and waivers have already passed this week, what I'm going to talk about isn't specific players for this week. It's more overall strategy, so it can apply to any week. But like my first thought is, do you really want to roster both Raiders? Like, I know the Tre Tucker blowout week was great, but are you ever really going to play him now that Addison's back? Like, I feel like you can just cut Tre Tucker for a depth running back. And you know what? Same thing maybe with Troy Franklin, which I was surprised to find out he is tied with Courtland Sutton for the team lead in targets. But again, are you ever playing both? So the fact that you're doubled up on Raiders receivers and Broncos receivers feels like I just cut Tucker and Franklin and just add 2 running backs. Like, I might think of something as simple as that as opposed to be thinking of a trade.
Yeah, I think another obvious one, and we'll have to think of the equivalent, but Laporta, not like the hottest start, but might have some name brand that you could cash in on.
I was thinking the opposite. Darren Waller just scored that touchdown. Tyreek Hill's hurt. Can you flip him right now for anything?
Yeah.
Give me a depth running back that isn't maybe starting right now, but Darren Waller for Michael Carter. Who says no?
Very topical. Yeah, I'd love to do that. I think you're a good position, Pokey Varsity. 2 and 2 is tough, but yeah, like Jamie broke down, you got the wide receiver 1. You got Sutton is solid. Waddle is on the way up. Henry should hopefully bounce back. I don't think you should make any panic moves. Now, if the news comes out that Bucky's injury is a little bit longer term, then maybe a week. I don't know what you do then, but I don't think you should panic here. It's a good team.
Okay, well, talking about waiver strategies, let's talk about some waiver wire strategies. And again, I'm thinking more just general how to approach waivers. So let's say your waivers are tonight. You're maybe doing the waivers as you're listening to this episode. What we've had so far is, I mean, we're 4 weeks of NFL data, but we're not doing too many waivers before week 1. But 3 weeks of data after week 2, after week 3, and after week 4 of these teams have bid on certain players, right? So you've got throughout the mini weeks of your league, different bid amounts that are there. Use those amounts. So one thing that I've always kind of not liked with waiver advice traditionally is percentages. Okay, this player is worth this percentage across the board. One specific player, I might put different fab amounts or percentage amounts on various leagues depending on A, my own team needs, but also B, the league context. Like, how deep are the rosters? It might just be as big a difference, but also to me, it's individualized to what are player prices in this league? Like, what's the league economy here say compared to others? So one thing I always do when I'm doing waivers is I look back at the season history of waiver bids. What are winning waiver bids for this league? And the teams that have overspent like half their budget, well, you can almost throw those out because okay, that team isn't competing at that level anymore. So someone, if you see a player in your league history, oh, they've put 51% of their fab on this player. Well, that team, unless they trade for fab, can't put 51% ever again. So you kind of, you use what has been done already with which teams still have money left to kind of make those critical decisions in terms of what you can disregard as an amount. But essentially what I like to do is what is the highest amount that's been won for a player so far? And if I absolutely want a player, I'll go one higher than that. That just worked in a league where I really needed Cooper Rush after the Lamar Jackson injury. And I think someone had earlier, I looked and it was a super flex league. Okay, when was the last time a backup quarterback, I think it was Mac Jones, went for like 27? Okay, well, if I want Cooper Rush, I'll put 28. Look, this morning, I won Cooper Rush. The second highest bid was 26. So I kind of utilized, I spent the almost exact amount I needed to win it. So I didn't overspend. And I was, again, using, well, this is what the history has been so far. And this one paid off. Now, all it takes is one person to deviate or be so desperate that they throw all their fab. You can't control for that. But I found doing this helps week to week in redraft. And if anyone remembers back, talk about Kyle Williams, this is how I operate with fab in dynasty leagues as well. Post rookie draft, I always look to last year's fab bids right after the rookie draft. What did the rookies who fell through the cracks of the draft, what did they go for? What was the highest amount? And if there's a player I absolutely want coming out of this rookie draft, I'll bid that amount plus one. So that's kind of how I approach the waivers all the time. Rahul, anything you want to say about my strategy?
No, it's an information game, right? You are best served by gaining as much information as you can, especially, if you're in leagues with people people you've played with. Like, people don't really tend to change their, how they operate on waivers year to year. So completely agree with what Kyle says. Man, especially Dynasty waivers, I'm the kind of guy who blows most of my budget right after the rookie draft. And
Yep.
In the
it's the first chance you have, the only chance you have to get these players, right? So I definitely will do that. The further along I've gone in Dynasty, the more aggressive I've gotten with those post rookie draft fab, because every year I'm seeing myself, man, I just have all this fab at the end of the season anyway. Or if there is like Jake Tonges, I have a league where I put like 75% of the fab on Jake Tonges in a 14-team Dynasty league with tight end premium. A starting tight end becomes available. I looked at last year. Someone had a similar situation. A starting tight end emerged. Someone won them for like $700 or something, $730. So I used that amount. Probably overspent this year because I easily won them. But so maybe that was an example of I overdid it. But guess what? Like, Tonjes is still in my lineup now. So I mean, that was one that happened immediately after week one, and I thought, what am I going to use all this fab for anyway? Like, most of the time, you're not getting players like this. So
yeah. And so if you didn't go through and spend the majority of your budget then, it's okay to be aggressive now. You like overbids, it's sometimes the worst feeling when you say you've bid 50 and the next highest bid is like $10, but spend what, like, you'll feel the best feeling is having the guy that you wanted on your roster. So don't be afraid.
If they're scoring you points and winning you a week, it won't matter what you spent in fab. You'll be happy with it.
Absolutely. I felt that this week with Darren Waller, that I felt like a fool for vastly overspending in the offseason. We finally saw Darren Waller look surprisingly spry, the former rapper himself. So that's one thing. Don't be afraid to overspend what you have, especially in Dynasty. It's a little bit different in redraft when that strategy to wait. But, valuable players can be few and far between. The other, I guess, piece of advice is, especially at the running back position, do your due diligence and like try to understand situations. Of course, hot topic of the day was Michael Carter, and that was someone that I bid and won in simply every single one of my sleeper league overnight. We didn't have the Benson IR news yet, so I kind of skirted that through. But to give you an example, Michael Carter has not been active up until this last week. With Connor going down, they need another running back. That was the first time he was active. But Michael Carter was not a running back that plays special teams, but what he can be and what he has been for the Arizona Cardinals when both Connor and Benson were out to end last year, he took a lion's share of the carries. He had 13 and 17 carries in weeks 17 and 18, I believe, of last year. And that's just a situation of knowing where Imari DiMercado is a passing down back and contributes in special teams, which is probably why he's active over Michael Carter. And I do think Michael Carter will jump to the front of the queue. Another example just from this year is Chris Rodriguez, who was inactive to start the year, But once Eckler went down, Chris Rodriguez has been the lead ball carrier, the early down back. And that's, again, a situation where Chris Rodriguez does not play special teams. Jerry McNichols plays special teams. But with the depth ahead of them changing, it kind of flips in a way that the early season share does not indicate. So, try again, get as much information as you can. Another specific example is just look at how backup running back situations across the league are shaking out. One more example is with the Raiders. Low ceiling offense. You might not think too much of it, but Zamir White had been active for the first 3 weeks and then was a healthy scratch in week 4. Raheem Mostert made his first appearance of the season in week 4 while Zamir White was a healthy scratch. So that's a situation that RB2 might have flipped. Dylan Lobby is, again, pure passing down special
He's
teams.
always the third no matter what. Zamir White was ahead of Lobby, but then Lobby stays that third guy and White goes from backup to inactive.
Exactly, and Mostert may have been rostered on a few teams, dropped after they saw him be inactive, and quietly has switched without. Actually, Mostert had a huge run, so he popped up in the box score, but he is probably still on a lot of your waiver wire. So, again, I guess the point of this whole thing is one running back. That's something that can change very quickly, and maybe not in a logical sense, but that's where you can use that information, kind of intuitiveness, to get ahead even when options seem sparse. So that's kind of how I navigate finding value when I don't have much fab capital to spend in the middle of the season.
To quickly summarize, again, use the information that has existed. 3 weeks of data before this. What have people spent on fab bids? What are the highest bids that have won players? You can use those bids throughout the season. Okay, I can do one better than that and should win players, and you kind of keep observing that throughout the season and see it. As things change, those numbers will naturally evolve. But you can also do it per position, right? Especially in Superflex, the quarterback amounts are going to be different than any other position, so you kind of separate those and throw those out. But even like a Trey Benson emerging a couple weeks ago, or what we saw Woody Marks, those amounts are going to be different than, say, a tight end or a wide receiver emerging. So you can also do it by position. That's typically how I approach waivers, is not to have generic percentages per player across all leagues, but have different amounts per league based on the activity in that league, what other managers have been bidding so far. Now, Jamie, if you want to talk waivers, feel free. I know the other side of waivers, if you pick someone up, you got to drop someone, and you wanted to talk about cut candidates. So I'll let you transition between both. If you wanted to mention anything about waivers first, and then you can get to your cut candidates afterwards.
For waivers, for Dynasty, I spent every dollar that I have right after the rookie draft. For example, the league that I'm in with you, I spent $55 on Pat Bryant. No one bid on him. I didn't care. I got my guy. Then I ended up getting Gaston and Taj Brooks, also a couple of my guys. So I'm not mad spending every single penny, because there's not going to be a lot of depth, especially in deeper leagues.
And also knowing, does it reset, right? Because I've been in leagues where there's an off-season fab and an in-season fab. If you have an off-season fab, I'm spending 95% of it right at the rookie draft, because I know in season I'm re-going back up to 100. Now, in a league where it doesn't reset, I will be a little more cautious. I'm going to hold some back. I won't max it all out at the rookie draft. I'll save some in season just in case. So knowing, again, we go back to knowing your league settings. That's an important distinction to make too.
Yeah, and then of course you got to drop some people. So I went through a few of my rosters and picked out a couple guys that I don't even really care about rostering anymore. They're not going to help my team now, and most likely they're not going to help in the future. So at running back, what do you guys think about dropping like Audric Estime? He's like 31% owned. Antonio Gibson's 37%. AJ Dillon's 29%. And then you mentioned Zamir White. I'm not interested in keeping him as a roster clogger either.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to view wide receivers more as roster cloggers, because I'm willing to spend, as Rahul just said, willing to hold a guy like Michael Carter, but it looks like he's doing absolutely nothing because suddenly things can change real quick. So out of that running back group, I would say it's like Estime's so young. I mean, this would be his third season, his second season. I think it's just his second season.
It's
I think
second.
he was
It's
a
only
rookie.
his second season. Yeah.
But he's already been cut by his first team, and it looks like he's on the Eagles right now, right? But he's like the 5th running back on the Eagles, so it seems like, is it already done for him? Like he's not going to ever be anything. Like he might be someone who's safe to cut in spite of his youth. I guess Jamie, my quick thing is I tend to think of wide receivers more as roster cloggers and running backs. Which I guess how do we define a roster clogger? Maybe that's where we should go first.
I mean, just someone that you think is never gonna get into your lineup, even if there's probably an injury to someone on the team. So, are you going to be really comfortable starting Antonio Gibson or like an AJ Dillon?
That's fair, and I think no one wants those players either. So it's not even just you can't start them; you also can't trade them. Like no one's going to give you anything of value to trade for them. So it feels like they're just taking up, they're wasting a spot on your roster, hence the term roster cloggers.
Yeah. So at wide receiver, a couple that I picked out that I'm willing to drop is Jalen Polk. He's right now at 42%. I'm not even sure if he even played a snap yet.
Well, he's injured.
He's out for the
year.
Out
for the season. Yeah.
But even last year.
Oh yeah, he had several games with just zeros. He had one like spike week, like the first month or two of the season, like a big 100-yard game or touchdown or something, like early October. Then nothing else the rest of the year. So again, a rookie last year, a second rounder, and we're already thinking he's a clogger. And I tend to agree with you, Jamie.
Yeah. Let's see a couple other Elijah Moore, 35%.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to start him. He's not getting the targets. I know he's got that first round talent. He just never panned out. And then Tutu Atwell, another one. I know he just had that huge game, right? But
wasn't it only catch? 80-yard catch was his only catch.
One catch. He had 2 targets that game, but weeks 1, 2, and 3, he's only had 1 target each of those games. So he's that gadget player that no one's gonna feel comfortable starting, no matter what. And then let's see, Xavier Restrepo. I think you just get rid of him, cut ties. He wasn't even really drafted, or he was a late 7th round pick.
Jamie's thought was, "Do you want him?" Restrep, no.
Oh. Let's see. Jimmy Horn was the guy that I kind of put on the end of my rosters. He's 42% owned. I think you could probably cut ties with him if you need to. See, Valdez Scantling, another good one. I'm never going to feel comfortable. And then this one here, Michael Wilson. He's 65% owned.
Ooh.
But when are we ever going to want to start him? Like, if you really want 5 to 8 points, yeah, go ahead. But if you're in like a shallower league, I think you could probably find someone a lot better to stash on your roster. What do you guys think?
Well, I think some of those other players, you're hearing them, you're like, yeah, I'm easily going to cut them. Michael Wilson that's a tough guy to cut. But you're right, JV. When are you going to start him? And does anyone want to trade for him? Like, it's funny because I think that what I've heard is the truer definition of roster cloggers aren't the like worst players, because the worst players you have no problem cutting them easily to just like churn that spot week in, week out. But a guy like Michael Wilson, you almost feel like you're giving up value if you cut him. But you also can't trade him for anything. Would anyone just take him for a 4th? Maybe, but you probably get just a lot of either rejections or basically just people just not responding because like it's Michael Wilson for a 4th. But those are the worst cloggers because you almost feel like you can't cut them, and you're just saying, forget what your feelings say, just cut him and use that roster spot on someone else. Like I think that Michael Wilson might be the eyebrow raiser, but I tend to agree with you. And what purpose does he serve on the Dynasty?
There's a running back that I like. He's 63% owned, and I was actually looking at one of my rosters, deciding if I should cut him or not, and that's Roschon Johnson. And I actually did end up cutting him in one league. I forgot who I picked up, but it hurt. But again, he's not getting. Yeah, it's after 4 weeks. He was active for 3 of them, and still hasn't even got a snap yet.
I hope
special teams god Roschon Johnson. They want him just for special teams.
Just for team morale. That's been the mascot for years. But Michael Wilson is a great I think that's a great bar for the roster cloggers. But what you both have said are right. You don't want to start him. No one wants to pay you anything for him, and he's seemingly too good or too flashy of a name to cut. But you're simply gaining no value, and you've locked up a roster spot. So I think making it a little broader, positionally at wide receiver is one that I think you see a lot of roster cloggers at. Running back and quarterback, I think those are two that I'm maybe a little bit more willing to be like two injuries needed for a running back, any RB in a 53, as Scott Connor says. And I can't remember the catchy phrase he asked for quarterbacks, but every backup quarterback is rostered in a lot of super flex leagues because those are injuries away from players that legitimately get into starting lineups, if not your own, into other people's in your leagues. That's how you capitalize them into value. So I think
if someone needs Jake Browning, sell him for a second. I mean, we talked about that a couple weeks ago, didn't we?
Well, yeah, I just saw McMillan today go for a third rounder.
I mean, I typically say that in a lot of leagues, right? The spot start quarterbacks just being traded for thirds. Right? So
and then there's a few tight ends that I picked out that I kind of want to get rid of on my roster. One is Mike Gesicki. He's 59% owned right now. And in Dynasty, he's that cautionary tale, right? Right now, he had 4 games, 6 catches, far below that starter level usage, but he's just plugging roster space. So if you got like a higher upside tight end on your bench or the waivers, I think it's time to move on from Mike Gesicki.
Yeah. Dawson Knox is my Mike Gesicki.
Yeah.
Backup tight ends, right? Like they're backup tight ends on their own teams. And
Michael Mayer would be someone that I would hold on to. I don't consider him like a Dawson Knox type.
The hope that like Mayer, like eventually when his rookie contract's done, he could go be a starter somewhere else instead of being Brock Bowers' backup.
Yeah, and then he has like top 10 upside.
Whereas it looks like Dawson Knox is never leaving the Bills. Like he and Josh Allen are best friends. The Bills love him. They're going to keep him there forever as that backup role. But there's no real upside to it. Like where you ever really, man, I'm going to start Dawson Knox. Okay, if Kincaid's ever out for a game, maybe that's the rare occasion where he would just eat all the snaps and he actually might earn a bigger target share. But those examples tend to be rare for pass catchers. We see a lot more running back. One starter gets hurt, okay, the backup is immediately elevated. Starting receiver gets hurt, the player coming into their spot in the lineup doesn't necessarily earn targets. Like it's still just an individual talent-based thing. Those make sense, Jimmy.
Tyler Conklin is another one right now.
Yes.
That he cut ties with. He's just competing with multiple pass catchers, even at the tight end position itself. You can get rid of this.
Sorry, Jimmy.
But yeah, I'm just going to say Gaston is the future. So
he might be the present. I mean, Rahul, your example of like the players like Zamir White going from backup to immediately inactive. It felt like that was Gadsden. He was inactive for the first couple weeks. Will Dissly got hurt, and he immediately jumped to the top. And in like that one game, earned more targets than Tyler Conklin's earned all season. So I was actually pretty excited for Conklin to go with Herbert and thinking he could usurp Dissly. Both of them were limiting each other before Gadsden got on the field, and now that Gadsden's on the field, looks like he's the guy. So yeah, Dissly and Conklin are both roster clogging.
Yeah. Before we answer this question, I got 1 or 2 more tight ends. Pat Freiermuth. What do you guys think about that? Because he is very talented, but if you're in like a roster crunch situation, like he's going to be boomer bust week to week. His usage may not give him that expandable role in like shallower league.
Jonnu Smith is totally like his upside. So you say boo or bust. I'm not even sure what the booms look like for Freiermuth. It mostly seems like bust. So that's a really tough name to. He's still pretty young, and we've seen him earn targets before in the past. This probably will end up being his worst season as a pro. But to hold him through his worst season, is it worth it? Right? Like you might just cut him now, and you could acquire him later, probably pretty easily if he does recapture what he used to be.
Yeah, and this last one's tough. It's Cole Kmet. So, like, even though he's seeing 90 to 100% of the snap share, like he's seeing like a very low target share, and it's a run-heavy offense, obviously. And unless like an injury hits to one of the pass catchers, I don't think he's gonna produce that much, even consistently. So maybe he's
Loveland's not doing much right now, and
Yeah.
yet neither is Kmet, right? He's on the field more, but he's not earning targets. That's not going to get any better as Loveland. I mean, you can think he's injured right now, but as he gets healthier and learns the game more, as Luther Burden gains his role too, like none of that's going to help Kmet earn targets if he's not earning.
So, depending on how deep the league is, maybe you can trade him to the Loveland owner right now for a 4th-round pick just to get something.
The fact that Loveland's hurt, it's the security for that other manager. That makes sense. Yeah, try and target that. I mean, could you do the same thing with Freiermuth to the John Smith manager, right? Like try and sell Freiermuth. You want to handcuff your tight ends and see if anyone's interested in doing that. You might also get a lot of rejections. But it's worth trying, right? Like, hey, I get tons of trade rejections. Some of them work. Some I actually do get some accepted. All right. So great take on the cut candidates, Jamie.
Yeah, actually, I got 2 more at a quarterback, but we can.
Oh yeah, go ahead and finish that off, and then we'll get to this question, which involves cutting players potentially.
So this is a eulogy for our boy Russell Wilson. Pour one out for him, guys. We got to honor the legacy. So we got to honor the legacy of a player and kind of reflect on the impact he had in the league, in our fantasy leagues. Russell Wilson's benching with the Giants, it marks an end of an era right now. So once he was a 3rd-round pick, he earned Super Bowl championship, and he was actually a fantasy star. He dominated weekly lineups with passing and using his legs in the rushing. But since Denver, he struggled, and now he's on his 3rd team in 3 years. This was his last real shot as a starter. It only lasted 3 games. With rookie Jackson Dart now taking over, Wilson's future is going to be backup only, even if he switches teams. In fantasy, unless you're in a super deep, super flex league, it's time just to say goodbye to Russell Wilson. So, Russ, we love you. Thank you for an incredible fantasy career. You will be missed. And in the final years, that steep decline, I'm sorry to see it.
Thank you for making Doug Baldwin so relevant. There definitely won some fantasy championships with Baldwin back in the day. I don't know if he's done anything else since, but
is that one though? Would you try, and this again, depending on your roster size, who you want to pick up in place of Russell Wilson, is there anything in you, Jamie, that wants to hold him for maybe a couple more weeks and see at least until the trade deadline? Because once the trade deadline passes, if he's still on the Giants, then it's over. But is there anything in you that wants to try and hold him up until the NFL trade deadline?
Not really. I mean, it depends on how deep the rosters are, honestly. So it's going to be hard to cut him, but I think it's time to say goodbye. And then finally, Joe Flacco. I want to give another eulogy. We honor players' impact both on the field and in our fantasy lineup. So Joe Flacco, he was never flashy, but he was steady and he was clutch, especially in playoff situations. So from his 2012 Super Bowl MVP run to the years leading the Ravens, he delivered reliable passing and occasional rushing upside. Later in his career, he bounced around as a veteran backup, but in fantasy, he was a trusted QB2 in many leagues. Flacco's legacy is one of consistency and championship pedigree, a player you could always count on in the right matchup. Joe Flacco, you will be missed, and I'll never forget all those top 10 performances you gave us on the Browns in that 2023 season when you got up off the couch to win us some games. Thank you, Joe Flacco.
that's true. Of course, you say clutch playoffs. He really wasn't clutch in the playoffs for the Browns that year, but that's okay. Very, very great eulogies, Jamie, and very great cut candidate section here. Because the idea of roster cloggers, I think we defined that pretty well. Now that let's put it all into practice now. So we do have a question. Juan Pena Jr. asking us, do I drop Nick Chubb for Rachaad White or Mari DeMarcado? If we look at the team context, Juan has Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Zach Charbonnet, Travion Henderson, and Kenneth Gainwell. So it's a pretty deep running back room. wide receivers on the team: Jordan Addison, Hollywood Brown, Tyquan Thornton, Devontae Adams, Quentin Johnston, and Deebo Samuel. Those last three are three starters on the team. So, we cutting Nick Chubb, and if so, are we prioritizing Rachaad White or Amari DeMarcado?
I would go with White, I think.
Yeah.
I think he has the higher upside, better team.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Rachaad White needs to be picked up, but honestly, I would probably drop Tyquan Thornton
That's what I was
ahead.
thinking.
Yeah. If Kyle, I don't know if you can flip back to the wide receivers on the roster. Yeah, I'd probably drop
You're never going
one
to
of the
start.
one of the Chiefs wide receivers, especially with Worthy back and anticipating Rashee Rice coming. I would rather keep Chubb because, yes, Woody Marks breakout, very exciting. They also won that game, 26-0, and it was out of reach, like, pretty early. So I'm hesitant to call it anything. Like, I don't think it's better than 50-50 right now. So I would still keep Chubb for now, and I would rather cut one of the Chiefs wide receivers, but certainly cut someone and pick up Rachaad White like immediately. Don't let it say even like another second.
Yeah, my first drop would be Thornton. My question is Woody Marks on the waiver? Because I kind of would rather have him over Rachaad White.
I seriously doubt it. I'm sure he would have mentioned Woody Marks if he was. So let me if he hasn't. Yeah, for sure. I think I'd prioritize Marks over either, but let's operate under the assumption that he was taken last week. That league was already smart enough to have rostered before the breakout. I'd be fine cutting Chubb for DeMarcado as well. So do both, right? Cut Thornton for Rachaad White, cut Chubb for DeMarcado, and see if you can get both these running backs.
Or you can even just cut both the Chiefs receivers.
Yeah.
Like, how comfortable are you ever going to want to start Hollywood or Thornton?
Now that Worthy's back and Rice will be back shortly, yeah. These were the games to start Brown, and other than week one, it's been pretty disappointing. So, yeah, no, that's fair. You've got three cut candidates there between Chubb, Thornton, and Hollywood Brown. And I think not just for this week, but in future weeks, if guys like Rachaad White emerge, I wouldn't be afraid to cut any of those three to continue to build this depth. So,
appreciate the question.
Cut at least one Chiefs receiver, maybe both. And if you want to hang on to one, then yeah, I'm fine with cutting Chubb. But if you can get both White and DeMarcado, I think that's fine because DeMarcado looks like he's about to be the lead back for the Cardinals. I think it's definitely worth something. Not as good of an offense as the Buccaneers, but still, I think worth having that. Yeah. To answer the pure question, I'd cut Nick Chubb for either of those running backs if that's what it takes. But we've given more cut candidates. Jamie just wants to. All we want to do is cut players, right? I feel like we have the power over that. No, we are not GMs. We are fantasy managers. We'll say that. I think we managed to say that, right? And like all managers in the NFL, sometimes you need to know when it's time to rebuild. So, how do you rebuild in Dynasty? And this is maybe a good time to talk about it in the season if a team is not sure which direction to go to, and instead of struggling to try and keep up, to maybe make a playoff spot, maybe it is time to think of the tear down, sell old assets, try and get as many draft picks as you possibly can, and then go from there. So the rebuild in Dynasty. And Rahul, this is your topic for today, and I think you're not the only one who's feeling this too, but certain specific rosters feel like they need to be rebuilt. So I'll let you take it off from here.
That's exactly right, Kyle. I have a Dynasty team that I am struggling to decide what to do, and I think the way you brought up the topic maybe gives me the direction that both at least yourself and maybe Jamie sees the future. This is a team in a league that started up 2 seasons ago, so we're into our 3rd year. Very sad to say that the team lost in the finals in both of the last 2 seasons, so that's maybe just like another step of like, man, it got so close, and I really don't want to give up on this window just yet. The team has started 2-2 in a league that has quite a poor, like, lower third. The bottom dwellers are very poor, so it's, maybe only 8 teams realistically are competing for 6 playoff spots, and that's again something that's pressure only from both ends. One, in one sense, like, hey, the playoffs are a little easier to get into than you might think, but also the chance of getting an early pick is a little harder than you might think. So it's holding me back. But just to go through the roster, but I'll do it position by position. It is a 12-team Superflex start 9 half PPR. At quarterback, I've got Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, Sam Darnold, Joe Flacco, and Dylan Gabriel, Joe Milton, and Mac Jones. Huh, yeah. But those are the quarterbacks. At running back, very thin in current production. Of course, I've got Jahmyr Gibbs leading the team. His Detroit teammate, David Montgomery. And then it's a bunch of committee handcuff types. Ramondre Stevenson, Ray Davis, Will Shipley, and Joe Mixon. Man, this is one of those injuries that kind of changed the picture and how the team really was shaping up. I've also got DJ Giddens on the taxi squad. At wide receiver, I've got Nico Collins, AJ Brown, Teteroa McMillan, Terry McLaurin, Brandon Ayuk, and Tank Dell. Again, 2 injuries that last year kind of, again, just shook up the prospects of this team. Tight end, George Kittle, again, terrorized by injury. Jonnu Smith, great last year, not so great this year. Darren Waller, and Luke Musgrave, who I have just cut Luke Musgrave for Michael Carter. This is one of those aforementioned leaks. So Michael Carter is on this team. And yeah, like I said, started 2-2. You know, I don't think playoffs is impossible, but it's a lot of underperforming pieces. It's a lot of pieces that I really feel like I would be selling at their lowest ebb. But your topic, you know, I brought to the table a couple of weeks ago, the art of selling low before, you know, the value that minuscule value that I have before it turns into zero value. Like, it is now the right time to make those moves. So that's the roster. Yeah, I'm very curious to know both general approach and then maybe some player specific approaches you would take with this team in its current state, because I do think it's currently struggling, and even if it were to sneak into the playoffs, I think a wild card round exit is probably would be in my future. So very curious to know what you guys think about this team.
Well, you never know about the playoff exits. I snuck into the playoffs 2 years ago, and I think it was the year Jonathan Taylor was hurt, and then when he came back, I ended up having Jonathan
Last
Taylor.
year.
Was it? I think it happened the year before too.
Okay.
But anyway, I ended up having Justice Hill and Pierre Strong as my main 2 running backs. And then when Taylor came back, I ended up winning the championship with Pierre Strong in my running back situation. The team wasn't even that good. Your teams looked better than what I won with. And honestly, AJ Brown, he's got to have some positive regression coming. I know he only had that one good game. McMillan, he's going to start picking it up. I heard Ray Davis is going to start getting more work. Stevenson, he's always a plug and play. Kittle's going to be back.
McLaurin. Yeah, Terry McLaurin is another one that just has not done anything, you know, yet this season. And it's like, do I sell now and maybe second at best, like a mid to late second at best, or do I like hold out for a few more weeks? I'm kind of feeling squeezed.
Maybe wait until he actually comes back and he's not hurt. Then that could be someone, because you got Ayuk coming back, right? He's on your IR.
He is.
So it looks like you got a good enough roster, like plug and play some people that can get you wins.
I hear you, and I really, you know, I did not feel this way a couple of weeks ago. I did not feel this way over the off season, you know, before the Mixon situation kind of devolved. But that's, I guess, the question of Dynasty and where it might apply to some of our viewers and some of the teams that you guys might have. Yeah, our viewers might have is like, would it be better to tear it down instead of aiming for, that sixth seed in the playoffs and, push out that like pick just a little bit more without like the highest probability. Of course, anything can happen. Like you described, Jamie, anything can happen once you get into the playoffs. But is that where the sharp dynasty manager decides to get those points off the team now and start stacking up the young players or picks?
Yeah, if you do, you need to sell all your older players. That's what, 26 and up, right?
Well, that's the thing. I think if you could do the total, like try and aggressively sell any week you can. Anytime any player spikes for whatever reason, try and capitalize every buy high opportunity or sell high opportunity you have. Like every week, you're constantly grinding the waiver wire. That's one thing that I see a lot of like teams that are rebuilding. They kind of let the team just go. Really, the rebuilders are some of the ones that should be grinding the waiver as much as possible. You need to every edge you can to turn value. Any player you could turn from a pickup into a draft pick. Now, we already talked about cut candidates like Joe Flacco on this team. Jamie, is this a team where you just cut Joe Flacco?
Yeah, you don't need him. He's never going to start for you again. He may not even start an NFL game again.
No one's probably going to give you a draft pick. Like
No.
You probably couldn't get a fourth.
I tried 2 weeks ago when he was actually playing to get fourth round pick for him, and no one fit on that.
Because everyone's knowing, okay, at some point the young guys are going to start, right? They knew that was coming. So unless you needed Flacco that week, you were so desperate, like you were going to take a 0 at quarterback. That would be the only reason you trade for him. That was for like one specific week, but that's already passed. Now, Cristiano Ronaldo. As a Portuguese Canadian, I'm not sure how I feel about that. In fact, I know how I feel about that. Like, as much as we can criticize Ronaldo for a lot, like he is so much better of a soccer player than Sam Darnold is a football player. That's just trade him so you don't have to have that name on your roster. I would suggest that. No, but I actually do want to talk about a specific player, and you just talked about the conundrum, right? Of you could probably feasibly make the playoffs with this roster, but there's also all this older value on the team you want to actualize into draft picks and make next year beyond competitive. You can do both, and I'll talk about AJ Brown. You wanted some specific things. I'll tell you what I did, Rahul, a couple weeks ago, sitting at 0-2 in a dynasty league. Tried to go really hard last year for the title. Looked like a strong contender all the way through. Missed the first round by 5 total points. The top 4 teams were all tied with the same record. And so those 2 first round buy spots went to total points. And over 2,000 points accumulated the whole season. 5 freaking points has ended up made the difference. Not even fantasy 6-pack of points, a 5-pack of points. And then it was this year, it lost in the first round of the playoffs. Like it didn't have that first round bye. Suddenly I'm out. Lost the first 2 weeks of the season. And you know what? Let's tear it down. Sold AJ Brown and a third to get Cortland Sutton in a first. I sold Ken Walker to get a 27 first. Actually, the first I got for Brown was also 27 first. Since I made that trade, I've won my last 2 weeks. So Brown and Walker off the team, it didn't matter. Like getting Sutton back certainly helped, but maybe some other guys on my bench that weren't being started because Ken Walker was there, they got on their lineup, and suddenly I saw extra points, and Jordan Addison coming back from suspension. So sometimes you can make those moves and still win. So I just wanted to talk about that too. Is this goes even for contending teams? Sometimes as a contender, if you have someone like AJ Brown, don't feel like, oh, I'm a contender, I can't sell any players. Sell them if you can get a first. Maybe you use that first later in the season if there's a trade deadline. Use it at the deadline, or if there's no deadline, use it kind of as you get in the fantasy playoffs. Maybe you use that first to buy a different player that helps you win more than, say, AJ Brown would have. So just because, that's why I think what JV say is right. If the total teardown, that makes sense, but you also don't necessarily have to right away. Like try moving 1 or 2 pieces, and if you still continue to win, okay, then maybe manage it through there. If that's not helping you win, and in fact losing those key pieces makes you lose, keep going. Just keep selling, get as many picks as you can, and then once you have this huge accumulation of picks, that lets you make trades at the rookie draft or just make a bunch of draft picks. So I know in this particular league I'm talking about, where I sold AJ Brown and Ken Walker, I already have 4 26 firsts and 327 first. So 7 picks over the next 2 years. It's also just a 10-team league. So like I have almost half of the first round next year. So that giving me that I doubt I'm going to make all 7 of those picks. I imagine I'm going to, in fact, trade most of those picks. But if the quantity of it means that if someone's looking to buy a pick in the 27 or even the 26 draft next year, well, those 6 other teams that only have their own first might not be willing to trade it. Well, I'm the guy with 4 of them, so I might. So if you're worried about selling a player and not being able to compete, I kind of just prove that you can still do it. Sometimes that guy you're elevating to your bench helps.
I really like that trade. And it's not something that I've really thought about, because if you think about the AJ Brown for Cortland Sutton in the first, there's the first there. Cortland Sutton has nowhere near the name cachet of AJ Brown. They might be comparable in age. Cortland Sutton is probably just a little bit older.
Might be like 2 or 3 years, but
yeah. But Cortland Sutton is probably scoring at least the same amount of points as the AJ Brown we've seen this year. AJ Brown's ceiling is, he's AJ Brown. But that's a trade that I really, it does allow you to do both, but you would still feel, I think, that you have a lot more flexibility with those first accumulated. But those points, and even if, let's say, in a couple of weeks, you're not really feeling the run, it's like maybe you're 4-4, 3-5. Cortland Sutton is not going to die on your roster. He still becomes a chip to trade. Whereas, like, what I would always think is like, hey, can I send AJ Brown for Ricky Pearsall and like a second? Because if I'm thinking about tearing it down, if I'm thinking about rebuilding, I want to get the young wide receiver. But that's probably a lot harder to do with another player that has name cachet compared to Cortland Sutton, to a Jacoby Myers type, right? Like, where the points are going to be there. Points are always going to be wanted. So that's I really like that as an actionable piece of advice, to still then get the first and the points, first on your team and the points on your team. So I like that a lot, Kyle.
I mean, a guy like Pearsall, maybe now the fact that he's hurt, that's the avenue to make that trade, right? Because if he was on a contending team, truthfully, Pearsall's scoring enough that a contender probably still wants to keep him. And use AJ Brown, like, I'm not really gaining much. But if it's this week and that player who has Pearsall needs a starter, maybe try and do that right now. Like, this is part of the rebuilder. You have to capitalize on every opportunity that arises. And so right now, if I could sell AJ Brown for Pearsall, even if you're, like you said, just getting a second on top or even a third, that might be worth it for you because it sets your team in the direction you want it to. And then once Pearsall returns, maybe he helps you win and get into the playoffs later too.
Yeah, that makes sense. To ask a couple of questions about maybe a few other guys, the likes of Terry McLaurin, David Montgomery. It's guys that have up and down starts the season. They're on the older end. Are you like trying to cut bait immediately, or is that like, I think Jamie, you're the one who said you have to wait till that boom game before you can really capitalize on that?
Well, with McLaurin's injury, you probably, because a team that's trying to contend probably, I mean, they don't want to buy an injured player that's not starting, right? Once McLaurin's back, that makes it feasible they'd want to. Does a rebuilding team want McLaurin, who's already 29, 30? Like, even if he's injured, which is sometimes what rebuilders target, like that's, you probably have to wait for him to be starting games to get that opportunity. For a guy like Montgomery, though, like, that's not even so much him. It's more, does someone need him, right? Like, and that's where, if someone is out of a starter and needs a starter desperately for a week, that's where you can, sell Montgomery for a second. Montgomery in a second to get a first if someone's really desperate, like moves like that. But it's all going to be contingent on someone else needing the running back that week, because Montgomery is probably not someone that people are buying to get his depth. If they're buying Montgomery, it's to play him. So like, look through the rest of your league, Rahul. Do you see anyone who doesn't have a good second starter where Montgomery would be a better upgrade at their RB2 than it is on any other team, or than any on their roster? Like, those are the teams you're targeting and try and get what you can from them. Because the teams that don't need him aren't going to give you anything. They don't need him. Why would they give up something, right? So that's, for a guy like Montgomery, like with McLaurin, you're waiting for him just to be back. Once he's back, that any contender might want him, But with Montgomery, it seems like it's really specifically, does another manager have a need at running back that specific week to where they're willing to trade for him to plug him straight in the line? So look for that. Like, look, and that might be, you might not get that opportunity this week, but that might come now that we're starting to get bye weeks. That might be more easy to find that. But a random injury pops up and someone is kind of panicked, doesn't have an option. That's where you jump in, you try and sell Montgomery. So back to the whole, as a rebuilder, you always have to be paying attention. You have to know what the other teams are, what the other team's needs are. And then you're always trying to sell to the team that you think will give you the biggest return. So someone needs to start Montgomery that week. They're going to give you more than someone who's just speculating, oh, I'm going to have him as a handcuff to Gibbs or as a backup.
Yeah.
So look in your league and see, does anyone need a running back at this specific week, week 5? Might as well sell him now, right? While that need exists.
Week 5, but I'm also, for Montgomery specifically, I'm looking for the fantasy RB Kingmaker, the Cincinnati Bengals, to boost up that Montgomery value. But on the topic of running backs, the last specific question is something I brought to you guys in the chat maybe a couple of weeks ago. The potential of selling Jahmyr Gibbs, who I would still consider as a cornerstone piece even on a rebuilding team. But given that he is a running back, is that one where you're trying to convert the value of a Jahmyr Gibbs into a cornerstone asset at a different position? Would you consider doing that?
See, he's the guy where if you sell Gibbs, you better sell everyone else. Because if you're selling him, you're tearing it down. So he's someone where I would try and sell the other pieces first. And if you're not able to sell the other pieces, then you may as well go for it. Right? You may as well hang on to Gibbs and try and win. If this roster is too good to kind of tank or rebuild. So I'm really hesitant to sell the biggest piece first. I want to make sure. I'll sell the smaller pieces around it, and then once I see I'm going to do this, because if you sell Gibbs and you're so desperate to sell AJ Brown, and the other managers could probably see that too, because right now someone sees you, oh, he's selling AJ Brown. He might be contending too, though. So another contender might view that as, oh, I'm taking this away from another contender. I'm helping my chances in the playoffs by improving my roster, but also hurting someone else's roster. So maybe lessening their chances of making the playoffs. If you sell Gibbs, teams probably view you and, oh, that team's rebuilding. I don't have to worry about it as much. If AJ Brown's on his team in the playoffs, that's fine because I won't be playing against him. So you probably want to sell Montgomery and Brown before you sell Gibbs. That's just. I'm also really scared to sell a guy like Gibbs. I'm trying to buy him so much.
Yeah, no, that is a great way of putting. Don't sell your best piece first in a rebuild. That's a great piece of advice. Thank you.
Jamie, anything about Jahmyr Gibbs?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't sell them unless you get a haul. But we do have a couple questions in the chat. We only have a few minutes left of the show. If you want to rapid fire those questions off?
Well, I mean, Rahul, did we cover your topic thoroughly?
Absolutely, guys. That has given me a lot more ideas and really strategies, I guess, for how to approach rebuilding or even just retooling a team. So thank you. I'll definitely take this advice to heart, and I hope that helped the viewers who might have teams in similar situations.
Talked about some specific players, but I thought there was also some general things that we talked about throughout. Let's get some specific questions. So Juan again mentioning, would you guys pick up Tre Tucker? And if this is for this other team, we're already talking about roster clogger receivers like Tyquan Thornton and Hollywood Brown. Tre Tucker feels like he fits right into that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Between those three, do you prefer Tucker over the two Chiefs wide receivers? Because I don't. You've
already got fancy Tre Tucker and Jordan Addison, and you've got Kansas Tre.
The Jordan Addison disrespect. I mean, it's probably not. I mean, he's outscoring a ton of players this year at fantasy points per game. So yeah, you know.
Probably not.
I'd probably rather have Tre Tucker than Tyquan Thornton, but we're already talking Tyquan Thornton for running backs. If you had Tre Tucker on the team, we'd probably say the same thing, cut him for running back. So if it's for the same team, Juan, we'd say no. Like your Rashad White and DeMarcado are better priorities to pick up. Right, guys?
Yep.
Yeah,
I agree.
absolutely.
Okay. So anyway, thanks for the multiple questions, Juan. Then we got BD. Would you guys trade Tetero McMillan and Ricky Pearsall for Rashee Rice? It's a keeper league. Already have Gibbs, Bijan, Garrett Wilson. So probably with two keepers, you're probably keeping Gibbs and Bijan most years, right? As long as they're smashing, I'm probably just riding them out until I can't anymore. So there's probably not this feels pure redraft trade. Are you purely just trading McMillan and Pearsall for Rice?
Yeah, because McMillan's not going to be a keeper for you. Rice may even be a keeper. He's going to help you more than those two players this year, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, this week you don't have Pearsall, right? So, like, for this week specifically, like, that's only your one starter you're losing, McMillan, and you got to just figure out, go off your bench and fill that starter spot if you lose McMillan. Because receiver Rice 6-game suspension, so we're 2 games left.
2 games out.
So you'd have to find a starter for 2 weeks, right? Which you might have on the bench already. So if you've got good, solid bench options that you feel comfortable starting, the way it's going right now in Carolina, and the way Pearsall's injuries look to be going now, the injuries in the 49ers, Rice probably does have the highest upside, like JD was saying. If he returns and if he produces like he did last year, you certainly would rather have that in your lineup from fantasy playoffs than you would McMillan or Pearsall. So I think it makes sense. But again, got a few wide receiver from waivers is what BD is saying. So feels like there's options to start. If you lose McMillan and you don't have access to Rice right now, you can still start someone and still compete. So
yeah, I agree there.
Makes sense. Some guy named Jamie's asking, would you trade away Sutton and Ayuk for Ladd McConkey?
Start 7? Man, honestly, no.
Are you starting any of those players and start 7, Jamie? Like, I guess serious question to Jamie. Like, is Sutton a starter for you, or is Ladd McConkey a starter for you?
Yeah, give me Sutton over Ladd rest of season, honestly.
Probably, honestly, in redraft.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So it just in the start 7, I feel like Ayuk's a roster clogger personally, but if you got an IR spot to put him on and it's not eating up a roster spot, that's maybe a little better.
Yeah,
that's Jamie's question. We won't focus too much on it. We got Patrick here. Thank you, Patrick, for the question. Redraft. Trade Woody Marks and Keon Coleman for Tucker Kraft. 3-1 record. It's a full PPR league. Running backs on the team are Jahmyr Gibbs, Jalen Warren. Sorry, running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs, Jalen Warren, Cam Scatterbu, RJ Harvey, Woody Marks, Bashal Tootin. Wide receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Brian Thomas Jr., Cortland Sutton, Emeka Egbuka, Keon Coleman, Alec Manor, and Juwan Johnson. I know names.
So you're probably not even going to start Woody or Keon.
And you might start Kraft, over Juwan. Yeah, I was thinking that too. Is this a way to get use maybe a waiver guy like Woody or someone who's decent value to get a tight end for the rest of the year? My only hesitation is, could you get a better tight end than Kraft? Can you get a true target earner? Maybe not with these guys.
And not with Woody and Keon.
In redraft, can you trade Woody and Sutton to get a better tight end than Kraft? Like, can you?
I'd be worried that leaves me Patrick there a little too light in the short term at wide receivers. Then you only have BTJ and Egbuka as real starters until CD comes back.
Yeah, I guess you are relying on Sutton and Egbuka every week now until Lamb's in. Because man, it's tough to trust Brian Thomas Jr. You know what? This trade does make sense because you're upgrading a starter, like JV said, without really giving up anyone you're starting right now. Good running back depth that you can afford. This new hype that Woody Marks has, you can afford to capitalize it by getting another player at a different position, because you might start him Warren's on bye. Woody probably is a starter this week, assuming there's a flex spot.
Yeah,
because I'd start him over RJ Harvey. I guess he did get 14 carries last week.
Wouldn't you rather start Juwan and Kraft over Woody?
Well, Kraft is on bye right now.
That's so you're gonna. Yeah, you know what? The more I'm looking at it, the more I'm kind of talking myself out of it, because it feels like you do want Woody as a starter, right? Again, maybe if assuming you probably want to start at least 3 running backs. I guess that means starting Woody Marks in a flex over Brian Thomas Jr. If you really don't want to do that and you got to get rid of the temptation and just trade away Woody Marks, I suppose that.
If it's 2 flex, hold on to Woody. If it's just 1 flex, I'd probably consider making that trade. Yeah,
that makes sense. If more starters that aren't tight ends means the tight ends are more devalued, but the fewer starters there are, the more that tight end spot becomes valuable to the roster relative to the rest of the roster. All right, so Sorry, I've been waffling on this question back and forth, Patrick. I think it makes sense to make the trade, but again, like I'm just so hesitant on Kraft because he just doesn't earn enough targets. Like I'm still trying to go higher than that. To really get higher than that, like to get the Tyler Warren, Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, like we're not talking about Woody Marks and Keon Coleman. Then you're having to give away your 2-star players.
Would you do it for George Kittle?
Marks
You still have Juwan Johnson.
Kittle?
You
what?
still have
Yeah.
Juwan Johnson to start in the meantime. Would you do it for Kittle?
That's probably higher upside once he's back than Kraft is. Yeah, that's true. That's a really good target there. Great point. Great, because with all the injuries they're having, he's going to come back and immediately earn a massive target share. Yeah, I like that. Jamie, does that make sense going after Kittle instead of Tucker?
I would. You're gonna have to give up more. I wouldn't give up Kittle for that.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Kraft. The reason he's going after Kraft, this is the guy you could attain for this price.
Mm-hmm.
If this is the best tight end you can get, I'm fine with it, Patrick. I guess my hesitation is can you possibly get a better tight end, even if it means paying more? I guess are you willing to stomach that price? So if you've done your due diligence already, Patrick, and you think this is the best way to get a tight end upgrade, you can stream between Kraft and Juwan Johnson like when they're both active. You're not dealing with bye weeks. You can kind of pick the matchups maybe. Use something like the goal line guide article, which can be found at fantasy6pack.com, where I try to predict touchdowns every week. And for tight ends, touchdowns are so huge in terms of pivotal for that production. So thank you, Patrick, for that question. Thank you, BD, for your question. Thank you, Mike, for stopping by, saying what's up, guys.
What's up, Mike?
Co-host alongside Rahul and Jamie. Another great show. Thank you, Juan, for multiple questions. Albert, as always, join us in the chat every week. And Poke Varsity starting us off with a question right off the bat. So it's a great to interact with all the fans and listeners and viewers today. We're all fans of fantasy football. So,
yeah, I certainly felt like a fan asking the experts my questions, showing that team. So yeah, thank you to you guys, and thank you as well as always to the viewers for hanging in with us and asking all your great questions. The questions really make this show a lot more fun for all of us.
And the questions can continue. I mean, you can interact with us on Twitter, for instance. I'm at Senra Says, Rahul's at Small Talk FF, Jamie's at Jamie Perog. So tag us in any questions you have. You can on YouTube, you can put comments under the video after the fact. I mean, you could obviously people were joining the live chat tonight, but on the replay, you can comment under the video, and I try and check back. I know Jamie will as well to try and answer questions when we see them come up, so you can interact with us there. Also head over to the Fantasy Six Pack Discord. There's a lot of great people interacting, a lot of different channels. A little bit can be accessed for free. There's also premium channels and premium content. We talked about some of the content at fantasy6pack.net, but there's the all access membership, and that gets you everything. There's articles that aren't available for free. There's cheat sheets and DFS and betting devices specifically on a week-to-week basis that isn't available for free. You can get it through the all access membership. And again, we have a 15% discount right now using the promo code F6PPods. And I think that was it for everything I needed to talk about. So I thought we built up this episode really well, and hopefully we rebuilt Rahul's confidence with this team going afterwards.
Y'all certainly did, yeah. Thank you both, and great show. You're right, like a lot of relevant topics, and maybe we'll address the rebuilding kind of questions in maybe 4 to 5 weeks. Maybe that'll be another good time to talk about rebuilding strategies. But I think timely one, because you want to be ahead of the curve, right? For sure. If you're going to choose to tear it down, the week right before the fantasy playoffs might be a little late because teams have already maybe got their contending pieces and aren't so much looking to buy. And the teams that have been kind of tanking / rebuilding throughout the season, they're so far ahead of you or behind you, however you want to view it, that they're going to get the early picks and you're not. So you're going to choose to tear it all down. You want to do that as quick as you can to try and work your way to the bottom and maybe get that one-on-one. So week 4, week 5 isn't too early if you feel like it's not going your way to rebuild the whole thing. Jamie, any final thoughts for our listeners?
No, I mean, this has been fun. As soon as this show ends, come over to my live podcast at the IDP Center right now in a few minutes.
Yeah, appreciate that, Jamie. Appreciate the quick turnaround. I appreciate all the listeners and viewers who joined us again, as you did every week, here on the Dynasty Six Pack. And we will be back next week on the Fantasy Six Pack YouTube channel. So thanks, everyone. Bye for now. On behalf of Rahul and Jamie, I'm Kyle Senra. Like I said, this was episode 31 of the Dynasty Six Pack.